Today's video, we're going to be checking out the Mattel DC Comics Multiverse. This is Super Friends Aquaman. Okay. Before we have a look at the figure, let's figure out how tall Aquaman is. And the answer to that question is 6.5 inches. Much like his other super friends, we'll move him over, Aquaman comes with his own chromium card featuring a more classic vintage look of the Aquaman. Comes with the also half-circle display base, which has a Super Friends label sticker over top of it, and one single peg. The card itself looks pretty good, actually, and then if you spin it around, it has SUP. S-U, well, not quite a P, but anyone who knows how super is spelt pretty much will gauge that that will be a P. The thing about the stand is the same thing I mentioned with all the figures. Aquaman does not stand on it. Well, that's not true. I'm not trying to be a fibber face. He stands on it, but the peg does not sit in the hole. Or in the, for that matter, you can't attach the foot where it stays in place. It's just loose. It almost defeats the purpose of even having the peg, but yet nonetheless they put the peg right. I'm certain that they've used this stand for something before. Maybe for a figure that actually could have attached itself, but who's to say? What one can say, or at least what I can say, is that this also completes the set. So there is Aquaman, Superman, that we've already just recently looked at. There is Green Lantern. And way off to the side, there is Batman. I know these aren't in proper sequence, but there's your 4-figure lot finally completed. Took me forever. I found both Aquaman and Superman at my local comic book store, but prior to that, the only places I was able to find any of these figures were at Walmart, and that would only be these two figures, which I think are still sitting the pegs. And these ones I just happen to luck out. We'll go ahead, though, and spin the cards around. Yes, I was off. I was very off. We'll move Batman over there. Super Friends. There we go. Yeah, only 4 figures make up this wave. It's a shame that they didn't utilize the Wonder Woman mold, because it's been a while that we've actually seen that mold get reused. But there's Super Friends, all in this kind of cool chromium effect. So, at the very least, the cards look good, even if the figures themselves don't stand well on them. And we'll just kind of lay those all out. And by the way, if you also wanted to see how they all looked with their corresponding figures, we'll bring Green Lantern in, put him right there. And we'll bring in Superman. We just recently looked at Superman, put him right there. And where is he? My favorite of the 4 figures we looked at, minus his cape, is Batman. Batman. There we go. And lastly, Aquaman. Now, looking at the 4 figures, I feel like the one that looks the most like the cartoon is, funny enough, Aquaman is the last figure that we're looking at in this particular wave. There's all 4 figures representing. Move these all off to the side. Move Superman away, Batman away. And once again, Aquaman. Put a stand right there, put him standing right there. Comes with his accessory, his trident, which we have seen this before. Not funny enough, though. Not really funny anyways, but it didn't come with the original Aquaman. No, in fact, Aquaman, if I just reach off to the side, Aquaman got a much more elaborate looking trident when he was released in the original DC Universe setup, the original DC Universe figure release. This figure staff has been used. I feel like it's been used for Aquaman. I may or may not be correct by this, the Justice League Aquaman. I know it certainly has been used for something, and it's very devoid of color. To be fair, though, I suppose it's based on a cartoon model, where cartoons didn't really have shading, metallic colors sort of thing, so it's a much more simplified trident. Still digging this one though, but that's the weapon that he comes with for this figure release. You know what? I looked at this figure. Maybe trying over there. I looked at this figure and I scratched my head. I had egg on my face as I couldn't quite place where this figure's head was coming from. It couldn't possibly have been the DC Universe Aquaman, one of my all-time favorite DC Universe figures. No, it had to come from somewhere. But where would this head have come from? Well, then I went back to my collection and I brought in the original DC Universe Aquaman. And it's when you start looking at the little details, such as the shape of the chin, the shape of the nose, the shape of the mouth, even the shape of the hair, you realize it is the same figure. Well, that's not 100% true. The head sculpt is exactly the same. The lower half, though, his legs look like they are different. Obviously, the fins are different. The belt is different. The torso is also different. But yet, his head, of all the things I thought wasn't the case, you can see that it is a different head, or it is the same head sculpt. Just a difference of paint. It's baffling. And yet, sure enough, one of my all-time favorite DC Universe figures, you strip it down and give it very simplified paint. Apparently, this is what you get. Unbelievable. I have Aquaman here. This one here, I believe, is the Aquaman that came included, packaged with the Masters of the Universe Merman, slightly lighter shade. And then there was also this Aquaman. Actually, you know what? I think this was the original release. This was the one here that came with Merman. Anytime that this figure has been released, I always tried to get my hands on it because it's an absolutely glorious looking figure. I think this one might have been, or at any rate, it doesn't really matter. But you can see, though, a very drastic change between the original Aquaman and this one right here. This one here is clearly using just a defaulted DC Universe body, which has no relations whatsoever to Aquaman. You can obviously clearly see as well that the scales have been left off, favoring a much more cleaner presentation, and they've actually just gone in and drawn the scales rather than actually using textured scales, which works better for it being a cartoon character because you obviously don't want to go the route of a more realistic approach. So for that reason, like, a lot of the aspects to this Aquaman are very simple, very one singular color. There's really no additional shading or complex colors. You have very basic orange, basic green, basic yellow, basic black. It's not to say that despite doing just a more simpler approach, that the figure is still not without its flaws. Yes, unfortunately, it does have flaws. The head sculpt is decently passable for being a cartoon representation of Aquaman. Unfortunately, though, when it gets down to here, I really don't know what's happened, but the flesh tone, the skin tone, when it gets to around the end of his collar that attaches to his shirt, it looks just, I don't want to say chewed up, but it looks like the paint has just been very haphazardly applied. This paint is generally pretty clean until you get to like the forearms. Now, where this has been cast orange plastic, the forearms, however, look like they've been cast with perhaps green plastic and painted orange over top of it. So not only is the orange a different color from the rest of the plastic here, but it's also chipping to reveal the real intentions underneath the green plastic. Here, it's harder to gauge. Maybe it was black plastic, but they painted the orange over top of that. So neither of these colors, this color, and this color, go with the rest of the torso, which is slightly a shame. The colors are very vibrant, though, both the orange and the green, especially the green. It's almost pulsating. It's almost like pulsating, glowing green. Really quite nice. Very splendid looking green color. There's the back of him. He really is missing absolutely. He has no scaling whatsoever on the back. I guess they decided just to scale the front, but a couple on the back could have gone a long way as well. It is just, I still scratch my head to think that that was this guy here. Or, for that matter, this one right here. This is my favorite of the two Aquamen. This one has slightly shinier plastic. It's got slightly darker colors too. This one is just my all-time favorite. It's probably, I would say, my top 3. It might even be my #1 favorite DC Universe figure of all time is Aquaman here. And to think that turned to this. I say that not necessarily in a bad way, but it goes to show this is the best, one of the best examples I can think of where paint can really define a figure. You look at this figure and you think, okay, yeah, it's simple, it's basic, it's not the greatest of head sculpts. And then all of a sudden you slap paint on it in all the right places. Dang nabbit, that's a fantastic looking head sculpt. So let's go ahead and move these out of the way. Keep wanting to bring any excuse I have to bring those back into a video. I'll find a way. Technically, I don't even think I did a re-review on those guys, so maybe at some point I'll do a re-review of the DC Universe Aquaman. Posability on this guy, his head rotates all the way around. Shoulders hinge outward, as well as he has the rotation all the way around. Swivel at the bicep, he has a hinge on the elbow. Unfortunately, hinging the elbow finds myself, at least, discovering more paint flaking off the arm area there. So slightly more of a disappointing experience. Hands rotate all the way around. You have the hinge back and forth. Upper torso crunch. Waist swivel. Split on the legs. Forward and back. Yes, we've seen these all before, this articulation here. A lower swivel on the lower cut of the thigh. Hinge on the knee. And then finally you've got a hinge in the foot. Like I said at the beginning of this review, I think Aquaman here does the best job at recreating how he looks in the cartoon. Batman is really good. Batman is still my favorite, but this one really at its core feels closer to the cartoon model. And again, goes to show, I'm not going to bring him back in. I know I want to, but I'm not going to bring him back in. Just goes to show, though, taking an existing mold, which at its core was an awesome head sculpt, and just toning it down. Kind of like what the Superman really did too. Toned it down. You can make it into a cartoon version of the character. However, I do think, unlike Superman, Superman was a working figure that did things well enough. I think Aquaman takes the same idea and does it a lot better. So this concludes our look at the DC Universe, DC Multiverse Super Friends figures. Only consists of 4 figures. I really think it could have had also Wonder Woman in there as well, but I guess Mattel just didn't want to use the Wonder Woman mold. 4 figures with a considerable gap in between the first 2 and the last 2 that we looked at. The first 2, very easy to find. Both the Batman and the Green Lantern are ones that you can still find in comic book stores and Walmarts and Targets and stuff like that now. I don't know how available the Superman and the Aquaman is going to be. I just found this at my local comic book store, so maybe retail stores are going to start stocking these finally, I hope. But overall, I do think the figures turned out good. I have to admit, obviously, it's just an excuse for Mattel to double dip or triple dip existing figure molds, just slapping on a new coat of paint, giving them the chromium cards, and display stands that just don't feel like they were suited for the figures to start off with. Clearly don't fit the figures well now. Of the 4 figures, my least favorite is still the Green Lantern. I don't think the head sculpt is all that great. My favorites are the Batman and the Aquaman that we're looking at right now. And I think the one that best looks like the cartoon is Aquaman. It goes to show, though, as mentioned in this review, taking the original head sculpt, toning down the paint, you can really scratch your head as to where this head sculpt would have come from until you start doing some comparisons left to right, and then you realize it's the exact same figure. The body mold is completely different, and utilizing the vibrant colors that we saw with the other 3 figure releases, I think these figures are good pickups if you're feeling nostalgic for either DC Universe figures or you're feeling nostalgic for the original Super Friends cartoon. Then I think that these are pickups. 4 figures too. They're not. You don't have to spend a lot of time collecting them. You can probably easily find all 4 in one go. I don't think I would say necessarily they're worth picking up for any other reason than maybe just a little bit of nostalgia. And then of the 4 figures, I think if I could recommend any of them, I would recommend both Batman and Aquaman here as my favorites of the 4. Today, we were having a look at the final figure, and it took forever to do it. We're looking at the Super Friends from the DC Multiverse. Hey now, if you guys haven't had a chance to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so. More videos will be coming your way, most definitely. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.